Hi everyone. For this video, I wanted to basically commemorate April Fools by doing two things. One, having a joke of sorts, and also not having a joke. And basically to explain what I mean when I released my Doom Eternal review back in 2020, I accidentally did it on April Fools, and a lot of people said, oh haha, this is the greatest April Fool's joke ever. This wasn't actually a joke, and what ended up happening is this year I decided to revisit my Metroidvania series, where I read the transphobic hate comments from Doom Eternal. And even then, I had to explain to viewers that this wasn't a joke. And so what I thought I would do for this video is I would read the transphobic hate comments that I was getting in the YouTube comments to my video, where I'm reading the transphobic hate comments to my original review. But also, we would watch Doom the Dark Ages gameplay demo and kind of respond to that too. So before we do that though, I did want to say, because it's April 1st, I released my second addition to the first book in my Sex Positivity series, Volume 0, aka the Thesis volume, or my PhD. So that's out, and if you want to know the details about that, even though I released it on April 1st, I originally planned on releasing it the day prior, but I wasn't able to get it out on time, and I just figured, what the hell, and I released it on April 1st. It's not a joke. This part of the video isn't a joke. I actually released it. There's a bunch of links, but also I include the new 2025 foreword to Volume 0, which I originally released in 2023. So the blog post version here includes that foreword, but I've just swapped out all the not safe for work images with at least non-nude images. So this is one of my cover models, Romantic Rose. And then there's just basically some safe for work artwork, or at least not nude artwork, different fantasy artwork, Gothic artwork. This is Samus from Metroid, Frankenstein's Monster, the Bernie Wrightson version from the 1980s, and a few other things. But it also goes over some of the changes. I'm not going to read over everything. I'm not going to read through the whole foreword, but I will say that the word count for the entire book volume, it climbed 20,000 words and gained 200 extra images. And there were quite a few changes. The main difference, or the main focus of this edition, was focusing on ludogothic BDSM, which was a term that I introduced in the thesis volume, but it wasn't something that I would go on to really write about extensively until later. So this is on my website. On my blog has a version of it as well. Like if we click, yeah, here. So a 2025 note on my development of ludogothic BDSM. So this is literally just a blog post, the same exact thing on my website, about ludogothic BDSM, if you want to know what that is. There's a summary of it, there's, visual aids, and a lot of different links, but there's also some different pieces that I've also gone on to catalog here for you. So if you want to see some examples of Little Gothic BDSM outside of my thesis volume, this is a good start. There's definitely more examples, but that's a good start. And in any event, when going back to volume 0 after about 2 years, I was like, I introduced the term here, but I don't really talk about it very much. And it's not until basically my poetry module, or the first module of volume 2, that I really start to engage with the concept. And so that would have basically been in May of 2024 or thereabouts, where I really start to get into the term and I start unpacking it. So this 2025 forward, released on April Fool's, not April Fool's joke, talks about that and how I kind of come full circle and I go back to the first book in the series as opposed to the 5th book in the series, which is the latest one that I released. After having written 5 books, I go back to the first and I'm like, okay, well, Little Gothic BDSM is something I introduce here. Why don't we unpack that a little bit? So it's kind of a retrospective after 2 years. And yeah, so I'm excited to release this. It was a lot of work, not as much work, just because, again, I was editing something that was largely proofread. I was just kind of adding some footnotes to be like, okay, let me cite some new material in this old book, and furthermore, let me write this forward. So definitely check it out. It's not a joke, and it's non-profit, so you can go and download it for free. Now we get to Doom Eternal 2020 review. No girls or trans people allowed. I released this 5 years ago, and I got a bunch of hate comments on it, and I released this 2025 video 2 months ago, January 15th, 2025, basically reading those comments. And the whole point of this video is to read through those comments, so I'm not going to do that again. But there were some comments that I was going to read here from the YouTube comments, the hate comments that I was getting after responding to me reading my own hate mail. So I thought I might read through some of those. There's not quite as many, the video's relatively new, but I imagine I'll be getting more hate comments as time goes on. But I'll read the ones that I have, and then after that, we'll watch Doom the Dark Ages gameplay and just, I don't know, give my thoughts on it. It probably still doesn't have any girls or trans people in it, but I guess we'll see. So, Dried Candy 4918 said, "Look, bro, I respect your opinion, but like Doom Guy's an established character, just like Lara Croft, Master Chief, or Nathan Drake." And I respond, "Please don't call me bro, I'm trans. Second, Doom Guy aside, a franchise can have multiple characters, see Doom novels, so even if a particular character becomes religion for people, there's room for new heroes, e.g. new iterations of the same basic Marine, i.e. Rambo for the kiddies of a New World Order. Not exactly a high bar, even with kings, a system of power that consolidates it around a single person like a god. Said person dies and passes the crown on to a new iteration. Doom Guy isn't eternal any more than Trump is, or Clint Eastwood. For every icon, there is iconoclasm." This person says, "To reply to your point, the meat hook changes how you play the game, so why not start it immediately?" Okay, so this isn't hate mail, but this is a nice comment. "It's for progression and not to overwhelm the player. You just start the player with all these movement and traversal mechanics, it will get overwhelmed, and they don't even have the fundamentals yet to utilize the second layer of movement. It's a must-learn to walk before you learn to run situation. If you start with just running and double jump, then the levels get designed with that in mind, challenging the players on their basic movement. Then as you introduce more and more demons, increasing the demand for better movement lest they die, you introduce the dash, giving them the tool necessary for the increased challenge, building up on what they already know vertically, and then you challenge them based on that. Then finally you add the meat hook, another layer of movement, and then you pile up the demons and challenges." And Yeah, I agree with this. The problem is that like the first 5 levels feel like a completely different game because the movement scheme is like so different. And I guess you could make that argument about like Super Metroid. By the end of that game, you have um, all of your equipment. Though in Super Metroid, you can unequip your items. Uh, but like the game was designed from the start to accommodate you regardless of what equipment you have. Whereas the early levels in Doom, they're like trainer levels. And by the time you get the meat hook, it really radically changes the way that the game plays. Whereas in Super Metroid, which is a Metroidvania, by the time you have all of these items, you're in a game world that was designed to sort of accommodate you and be able to kind of jump around and run really fast and have all the bombs and power bombs. Like, at the start of the game, you're still going to run into power bomb doors. You're still going to run into speed blocks and screw attack blocks and so on and so forth. Whereas I feel like the early levels of Doom Eternal are like, it's like a very long, extended training sequence, but it's not optional. Like, you can't skip it. And, it's like, I kind of wish that the early levels, like, given that it's a shooter, and if you play the first Doom, the first level is you have the basic control scheme and it doesn't change. But in Doom Eternal, like you have this control scheme that is like an extended prologue to the game, where it takes like 5 levels for the training wheels to get off, and then suddenly the whole game opens up. And I don't know, it feels a little abrupt. And my complaint with the meat hook wasn't even that so much. It's like the would be really easy just to all right, the training levels and just the way that they kind of unfold it. You could just put all that in a prologue, a starter area, or you could just start the game with all the items that you have. And like it just feels kind of clunky. But they could do it like that and just have the first level of the actual game be the Doom, well, not the Doom Citadel. I forget the name. It's like the 5th level, but it's the one where you have to go, and it's where you get the meat hook, and like uh, have that be the first level, and everything. Okay, fine. But my complaint was less about that and more just that even throughout the rest of the game, after you get the meat hook, there are just these platforming sections where there are no enemies, which forces you to do platforming without being able to use the meat hook. And it's just kind of like, why are these still in the game? If you're going to have a game where it's not platforming and you fly around like Superman, imagine Mario, but you could fly. It would defeat the point of having a platformer. So there are just these interlude sections where they're like, okay, well, we need something in between levels, uh, argued the game developers. So let's have uh, these sections where there's no monsters and you're just platforming. And I'm like, why? You can't die during the platforming sections. So it's not like if you're watching someone play Mario, when they fall into the pit, they die. So there's a certain amount of like tension. Whereas in this, there's no tension. If you fall, you take a little falling damage, if I remember correctly. But other than that, it's just there's no danger and there are no enemies. And furthermore, they didn't have anything like that in the original Doom games. You just go from level to level. You literally start at the beginning, you have your full control scheme, and then you go from level to level. And honestly, I thought it worked better. It's in the original Doom games aren't perfect, especially in terms of speedrunning, because if you ever watch like a pacifist run of Doom, the original Doom from 1993, it's kind of boring in my opinion. Like the meta narrative for the game doesn't hold up very well because the game's visuals don't really support that because you're just running past all the enemies and it's just not very exciting. Uh, but that being said, in Doom Eternal, they introduce all these game mechanics that feel kind of clunky and they don't work very well. And this includes just the early levels, but also the platforming sections after you get the meat hook. And it's like, if you're going to do platforming, understand what makes good platforming good, which is to say, if you fall, you die. In Doom Eternal, that doesn't happen. I think there's a couple of points, like if you have low health or if you are playing on like the hardest difficulty, if you fall, you die. But that's on the hardest difficulty, and most things will kill you basically uh, in a couple of hits. So if you have really low health and you fall and you take damage, then you can die. And okay, that's a little bit more exciting, but it's not really, because the platforming in the game is so easy. A toddler could do it. Like, it's not hard. The levels, those sections are set up to be easy on purpose. So it's just, frankly, like, those sections are kind of boring. So that was more my critique when it came to the meat hook. And sorry for taking so long explaining that, but this person, actually approached me in good faith, so I wanted to respond to them in good faith. It's crazy that after 5 years you still stand behind that article. I respond, it's crazy that after 5 years you still stand against it. And then someone else says, you ain't tough, man. You want to play the game, play it. Don't go around saying bullshit about how you got a PhD and want to see a Doom guy with tits. There's a lot of trans fan art of Doom for people like you. And I say, okay. But in all seriousness, it's like, this guy's like, well, there's Doom fan art. And I'm like, with trans, like gender swap rule, I forget the number, but rule 34 or whatever, like, where if there's a male version, there's a female version, or vice versa. And MB people too, and intersex, the rule doesn't really accommodate them, but for all intents and purposes, you can do whatever gender you want and whatever sex you want. And like, the thing is maybe I just don't want fan art. Maybe I want a trans person in a Doom game. It's the same thing I said 5 years ago. It'd be would be real nice, instead of having like this cartoonishly heteronormative male action hero like the monomyth. Maybe I'd like something that subverts that a little bit. And give me a trans character that's doing this stuff, and instead of, ostracizing it, relegating it to fan art, put it in the game. It's the same argument that trans people make for everything. We want to be in more movies. We want to be in more TV shows. Well, we want to be in more games too. Doom actually has a left-leaning component to it. So the fact that they're deliberately excluding that is a part of the reactionary Gamergate, sort of the post-Trump, post-Gamergate sort of regression towards what Gamergate stood for, which was attacking trans people. So one way to combat that is representation and subverting those regressive tendencies. Someone else says, so regarding a response to, you can't just change Doom Guy's gender, which is something like, yes, you can. Ripley did. Yeah. Though, actually, the thing is that Doom Guy came after Ripley because Doom was an alien's reskin, but they couldn't get the rights, so they just basically did Rambo in space, and they swapped the gender back to a male action hero as opposed to a female action hero. So my argument is, you can change the gender because Ripley changed Rambo from male to female, and Doom Guy changed it back. So if Doom Guy can change it back, then we can change it back to Ripley's sex, Ripley's gender, or better yet, not just a girl, an Amazon, but a trans person. And they go on to say, the point being made wasn't archetypal. They were addressing how 26 Eternal Doom Guy is literally meant to be the same person as 1993, 1994 Doom Guy, who was male. Okay, but what if you just had another character? Sorry for spelling out as patronizing since you're a Doom fan, but the rebuttal only makes sense to me if you didn't know. Well, no, I knew about that, but we could have more than one character. Do it like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where you have Donatello and Raphael, but you also have April O'Neil in some of the newer games. Why not have a character from the Doom universe who's female? You don't have to have Doom Guy. Give us a character that can run through the campaign who's female or trans. That's not a lot to ask. Just give us a different skin, and have some new voice lines. That would not be difficult. So I did know. I'm just asking for a little bit more. Nothing was lost in translation. What point were you trying to make with that response exactly? That I want more trans representation. That the character's pre-established gender doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. We should be able to change it. That you feel this strongly about any game with a binormative player character instead of customizable role-playing gender options. Yeah, I'd like to subvert gender norms, and the way you do that is by being genderqueer, by questioning heteronormative player characters, introducing more options that aren't heteronormative. Exactly. Ding, ding, ding. So I respond, my original response was, I don't care what their point was. I like a Doom game that's less heteronormative than Eternal. Not because they even want to play the game, but because heteronormativity is fundamentally harmful to people like me, and I want it to go away. If you don't like that, then that tells me all I need to know about you. You want things to regress because otherwise you wouldn't be fighting me on this. Doom Eternal is incredibly regressive and reactionary for a series that's already reactionary and harmful. Older games in the series were still jingoistic in their Rambo Vietnam revenge fantasies, but not to quite the same degree. Hell, even the old paperback novels had Arlene Sanders, and that's a really low bar. The male gaze, RE Metroid aliens, etc., RE tokenism, which frankly is still bad, just not as bad. Debatable. To that, there's a gradient to bad, insofar as reactionary politics and regression go, e.g. Doom 2016 wasn't above a neoliberal corporate critique unto itself, for example, but with Eternal, the studio pandered big time into a Gamergate lens, which I find gross and sad, or a growing fascism regressing backwards. Fascism is bad for women and trans people, which was my point then and now. I can only imagine the studio will pull the Roman salute in the next game to pander even harder to its usual constituents. And they say, I'm fine with it having more diversity. I just don't get how make Doom Guy a woman is the go-to suggestion when Doom Guy is an established male character. Like, how are you suggesting that even happen narratively? Furthermore, how could it plausibly be done in a thematically consistent way that wouldn't stink of pandering tokenism itself? I say, the whole point of subversion is to go against established practices and the status quo. That's literally the point, so you seeking permission from Daddy seems a bit passive. There's plenty of ways to go about that without pandering and tokenism, e.g. indie games, but choosing ideas that pander less to entitled white straight male nerds and token offshoots. Anything that isn't token. Use your imagination. And they say, I'm passive because I don't see how suddenly giving Doom Guy a gender slider is cohesive. I'm trying to understand how it possibly could be from your perspective. Like, has that ever happened before? Changing the main character's established gender between entries? And hey, you raise a fine point that maybe it should happen. Okay, but of all IPs to lead that charge, Doom, it'd be seen as some kind of joke. Yes. Especially when there are less incongruous ways to add more diverse gender representation to the game. And I say, it's not cohesive and adherence to establishment practices, and that's literally the point. In fact, the odds of this happening are basically zero within an established company. Then again, 2016 was relatively progressive compared to the 90s comic they were reclaiming, or what came after. In terms of it having never been done before, the Amazon dates back to ancient Athens, which William Marston camped to a degree with Wonder Woman. You also have Marvel's Red Sonja versus Howard's original Conan, none of which Doom pointedly refers to. So again, why not just have a new character in the game? E.g. like Ripley, Samus, Arlene Sanders, etc. It's not really that radical, and Arlene Sanders comes from the Doom universe, and furthermore, Doom was merely a reskin of Aliens, which was literally a Rambo gender swap. So yeah, it has been done before, many, many times. Versus there only being room for Doom Guy in such a world, that's obviously not true. Just make a new character, give her or them GNC room to play. Similar to, FemShep in Mass Effect. You can introduce new characters. The only people who say otherwise are entitled straight, white, male nerds with fragile egos and tiny imaginations afraid of women and trans people, and token groups emulating the man box. They say, see, this is the very disconnect that has me confused enough to comment in the first place. And that's what I mean by archetypal. You're naming different characters. Red Sonja isn't literally Howard's Conan with a sex change. In fact, they interacted with one another as distinct individuals. Yes, they did. You're right. Ripley isn't literally a time-displaced transitioned John Rambo. They're similar to the point of piss-taking, sure, but nonetheless have their own backstories and identities, etc. Unless I simply grievously misunderstood, you are positing that 2016 Doomslayer suddenly inexplicably become a quantum, gender-fluid changeling off-screen by Eternal. That, to my knowledge, has never been attempted before in any series, and I frankly can't imagine a way of doing it in Doom of all settings that wouldn't be reflexively interpreted as woke, DEI, lip service, or whatever. Introducing a new character, though, sure, completely sensible suggestion. Yes, and that's what I was suggesting, not that this other weird thing that you were suggesting, but the simpler thing, which is just a new character. That's it. Completely sensible suggestion. Yes, that's the kind of less incongruous way I had in mind. I'm starting to suspect the misunderstanding was indeed entirely on me. LOL. Yes, it was. I reply at the time, and I ask for more representation, period. Gender swap Doom guy, fine. Introduce new characters, equally fine. I don't care. As long as it moves the franchise in a less regressively and meat-headedly fascist direction. That was the point of the original review, and I don't feel any different about it now out of the closet versus when I originally wrote it in the closet. Alright, a couple more here. These ones get a little more facetious and shitty. I think your ideal game is bingo. The whole point of Doom Eternal is just to kill demons. There are no NPCs and the game is meant to be single player. I'm not being transphobic. Oh, really? I am just stating that your review is pure stupidity. You're being transphobic by saying that. If you feel offended that there isn't any trans representation in a game where the whole point is to kill demons while being badass, so you're saying that trans people can't be badass and kill demons? Just straight white men, apparently? You're stupid. Then maybe you should stop being offended at every little detail. Or maybe you should stop being offended at the prospect of there being trans people in Doom games. Or women, for that matter. They also say, and why should Doom Eternal add trans inclusivity? Because you're offended by tiny details? No, because I think that I'd like there to be trans characters in the game. They say, grow up and realize not everything is going to go your way. So is the guy who's a baby who wants everything to go his way, which is to not have trans people included. Like, you're talking down to me, tone policing me, and saying that you're going to get your way, but I'm not going to get my way, which is, in your case, to exclude me from your reindeer games. To which I say, go fuck yourself. I say at the time, you sound like a Nazi. And this person says, she's right, you're getting offended by such tiny details. All your ideas to make the game inclusive would destroy Doom and its story. And I'm like, okay, so your sentence is confusing because you say she's right. This person's name is Luis Dario Pereira Gunn. They're not trans. So, but you say she's right. So you're talking to me, but then you agree with the other person. I'm not getting offended by tiny details. It's not a tiny detail for you to admit my existence. That's a very big detail. So quit with the gaslight. And it wouldn't destroy the story. It's like trans people can exist in Doom. Like, and you're saying that it would destroy the story. That's a transphobic argument. That's what bothers me, is that you're being a Nazi. You're both being Nazis. And I respond, oh, there was someone else that I was being shitty, that calling out white supremacists like yourself makes me feel better. You keep misgendering me, which is creepy and weird. And all over a stupid video game, which makes it even worse. I know bad faith when I see it. And you're a creepy weirdo. Trump supporter or not, a fash is a fash. So I was actually responding to someone else who ended up blocking just because they were being even more aggressive and nasty than these two. But you know, the same basic idea. Like these people are making like they're gaslighting me with like white moderate whitewashing kind of approach, where they're like, oh well, you're just getting offended, you don't know, these are just tiny little things. Like, so they're being a little bit more moderate about it than this other person was, but it doesn't change the fact that they're wrong, and moderacy is just fascism with a mask. This other person was being masked off, and I'm like, okay, I ain't got time for this. Then this other person says, after reading your review and the comments on this video, this game clearly isn't for you. Doom Guy and the Doom series in general has always been over the top, testosterone fueled, demon hating Rambo affair. And I'm like, okay, but I mean, women have testosterone too. I have testosterone. You know, I'm a man. Like, I just, you know, just I have a penis. I have testicles. I produce testosterone naturally, and you know, the amount of testosterone that someone produces does not determine how masculine they are. There are plenty of people with low testosterone who overperform their masculinity, and there are plenty of people with high levels of testosterone that are tremendously femme or just genderqueer more broadly. So yeah, that's, and even if it was a demon hating Rambo affair, what do you think Aliens was? It doesn't have to be male. You can have girls. You can have trans people. Like, it's. I mean, what do you think the androids are? Like, they're these post-human, uh, gender non-conforming entities. Just look at Lance Henriksen in Aliens. He's MB as shit in that film. Uh, Even among straight men, the game isn't for everyone. Only for people that enjoy these types of games. And yes, there are women and trans people that do enjoy these types of games. I like Doom 2. I just don't like Eternal. Like, I liked Doom 2016 quite a bit. Played it a lot, actually. Um, but Doom Eternal is reactionary, and it deliberately excludes like anything that even felt remotely progressive. Like Doom 2016 had progressive elements, like they were camping uh, that original comic that was like really really bad, Rip and Tear Until It Is Done, which was a nod to this comic that was like deliberately bad and reactionary as shit. Like, so like that, you know, mid 90s comic was something that Doom 2016 was making fun of, and it was something that was basically um, camping what after Doom 2016 would become canonical again. So, like Doom 2016 was a game that I liked. I liked Doom 3. I liked uh, Doom, the PSX version with the scary soundtrack. I liked Doom 64. So I like the scarier Dooms, the horror themed Dooms, uh, you know, the haunted house versions of Doom, and I like those. But I also grew up playing the original Doom on DOS, and you know, on an old Pentium with like Windows 95 after that. You know, so it's like, yeah, I'm as a Doom fan as much as anyone else, and these dickheads are like, this game isn't for you. I think you should play Bingo. It's like I played the original Doom games, most of them, basically up until Doom Eternal, and like I remember wanting to play it, and then like, okay, well, I'll watch people play it and stuff like that, and I had already started moving away from playing games because the last Doom game I had played fairly extensively was Doom 2016. But then after that, I was like, okay, I'm in grad school focusing on my research. So by the time Doom Eternal came out, I was already um, playing, or I was already not playing video games anymore. So I was researching them. So that's one reason that I didn't play Doom Eternal. And you know, I admit there are certain things I like about it, but I still can critique it. You know, this is literally Gamergate all over again. You know, I can enjoy something and critique its pernicious aspects. Anita Sarkeesian. So, you know, white straight guys, white straight male fragility, you dickheads can't handle the slightest bit of criticism. Nazis can't handle the slightest bit of criticism. And that's what's happening here. And they're like, oh, well, this game isn't for everyone. Why the hell not? You do realize that Doom is one of the most popular games of all time. So to say that it's not for everyone is really dumb. And furthermore, it's just proving my point where you're saying, well, Doom Eternal is just for the hardcore Nazi types, basically, is what you're saying. And that's stupid. I want to decolonize the franchise and move away from its Gamergate regression. And one way to do that is by including trans people. Not token trans people, just trans people. Just give us something, you know? And you're saying Doom has a reputation, a new reputation that they regress towards, and the company behind it need to see a return on their investment. So you're saying that if they include trans people, what, you'll boycott? They know if they change what Doom is, they'll lose money. They've changed Doom plenty throughout the years, and they still did relatively okay. I'm half Asian, but I expect Tomb Raider to always be a British woman, not a half Asian man, so it matches my identity. Why? When I play a game, I play that character, not the other way around. Why? That's also the great thing about video games, being able to be something that you aren't in real life. Okay, it can go the other way around. I say to this person, I mean, they made 2016 and didn't pander nearly as hard, still made money. Sooner or later, you just have to acknowledge their gatekeeping, sometimes more, sometimes less. Eternal, they did so way, way more post-Gamergate. It's not just pandering, but pandering to fascists, which is gross and sad. That's also the great thing about video games, being able to be something that you aren't in real life, which is fine if that thing is the embodiment of the status quo, but not something gender non-conforming. Gotta love heteronormative double standards. And they say there's plenty of queer and female-like character games, though. Also, you're making the statement pandering to fascists. Have you ever considered or even think about being wrong with your assumptions? If you were proven wrong with evidence, would you accept it? But I'm not wrong? It only takes one, and I have years' worth of evidence from how I was treated by the fan base. You're not going to gaslight me about that, Holmes. And I also say, so I want one in Doom, one trans person, which is an Aliens reskin, by the way. Give me Arlene Sanders from the Doom paperback novels. They say, I didn't say you were wrong. I said, if you were wrong and there was evidence to prove it, would you accept it? Everyone should say yes to that question. Being treated badly, which I'm going to assume was just online banter from the fanbase, is not unique to you, as anyone that talked bad about Doom Eternal got crucified, including straight white men. I'm a Cannibal Corpse fan, although our lyrics are complete gore-obsessed and the music is intense the whole time. Does it make me a fascist that I don't want the band to change anything about their approach in songwriting? And fair enough if Arlene Sanders was in one of the paperback novels, multiple paperback novels actually, but changing the main character of a long-running game series like Doom is not a good business decision. Would you take that risk if you were in charge? And I said, this isn't zero-sum, and I'm not entertaining an impossibility. It panders to fascists, and that is a stone-cold fact. There isn't some magical piece of evidence, bias more like, to wipe the slate clean in that respect. They pander, full stop. The values of their games are fascist power fantasies. I know this because of the qualities in-game, but also the xenophobia of the players. You're all terrified of representation outside of white, straight men. If I were in charge, Doom would be full of slutty queer people, and we'd all be sitting around drinking tea, or shooting evil rich people and their servants. Fuck the US military, and fuck the status quo. But also, no, I've been abused outside of the game, too. It hasn't just been online. I've been denied housing. I've been told to kill myself. I've been raped by my ex for shit like this. So don't tell me it's just online, because no, it happened offline too. And these things aren't completely separate from each other. The internet isn't separate from real life, because the people on the internet are also people who can attack you in real life. That's how Nazis work. And they say, you Americans are a different breed, I'll give you that. And I say, I really don't speak for most Americans, but I am gay, anti-com, and anti-war. So yeah, that's the comments that I was getting. More of the same, basically, just a lot of Gamergate, oh, we're not Nazis, but you are, kind of comments. And yeah, so basically the same kind of comments that I would get in 2020, basically for the past 5 years, except now they know that I'm trans and they're basically gaslighting me and saying that I'm too delicate. You know, I'm too feminine for that, which, like, no, I'm a gorehound. I love horror movies. I love the Alien franchise. I love Doom. I love all of that. That's my point. And then they're like, this isn't for you. Doom Eternal's too hardcore for you. And I'm like, no, it's just, I'm critiquing the fact that it doesn't have trans people or girls. And I would like a Red Sonja type character. I would like, you know, the Doom guy belongs to this race of sentinels, right? Well, are there any Amazons? You know, give me an Amazon, right? Give me Ellen Ripley. Just literally put Ellen Ripley in the game. That would be a nice homage. That would be a wink and a nod to the franchise, where you could have the inspiration for Doom Guy, and yet that's, you know, these fascists are arguing against that because they're misogynistic and transphobic on top of that. So in any event, yeah, that kind of sums it up. It's, you know, same shit, different day, basically. And haven't got a lot of comments, though. Then again, the hate mail that I read for this video was over 5 years, whereas this video itself has only been out for 2 months. But, you know, still getting people leaving comments. Not everyone is leaving nasty comments, which is nice. This person, Sakuna 451, is, you know, left a nice comment, and a couple other people seemed like more moderate in terms of their attack. So, like, but yeah, so who knows? Maybe I'll get more comments, maybe I won't. But yeah, that concludes this portion of the video. Now what we'll do is we'll watch Doom the Dark Ages gameplay demo, and this came out 18 hours ago. So this came out before. We know it's not an April Fool's joke because it came out in March. So we're going to watch it, and just bear in mind my criticisms of Doom Eternal were largely this: you fly around like crazy, and I don't know, I don't really like to watch that. I don't like to spectate it, you know, because I did an interview series that was interviewing speedrunners of the game, and eventually I just got sick of it, just because of, you know, you're never touching the ground and you're just constantly, you know, flying through the air. I almost got like motion sickness from that. And so they kind of dial back the movement of that. You're more like a tank and you're fighting enemies like toe to toe, which I think is cool. I like that change. But so one of my original critiques for Doom Eternal seems like they addressed. But let's see, are they going to have any female characters or trans characters? Let's find out. I'll turn the volume down a bit so I can comment on this as I watch it. I like the weapon, the Morning Star, and that shield is the serrated shield from Mortal Kombat where Johnny Cage kills Scorpion. That's literally what that is. And I like how you have like the shield boomerang attack, but also you can deflect attacks back at enemies. And that guy's like mounted on a pinky, I think. At least I think it's a pinky. I can't really tell. You know, so like the melee combat with the Marauder in Doom Eternal, they're basically running with that and building the whole game around it. You know, so I think that's cool. I'm a trans woman, and look at me enjoying this. I can still recognize that it's, you know, fash coded because it's a neo-medieval regression where you go and kill demons because Empire is in decay. But I like what I see in terms of the visuals, and now it's cool as hell. Like, no pun intended. And bonk, and he's like hitting it with the Morning Star kind of thing, and he's like stunning it. So it has a pretty large health bar, and it's color coded, so when it does its melee attack, you know, okay, it's green. So do you, green with green, you know, you match up the colors, that kind of thing. It's the same kind of idiot-proof gameplay approach, you know, that they did with Doom 2016, where they had green coded levels, like, okay, green means go, basically. So they're doing that, except it's with the combat. And this is something that they introduced more with Doom Eternal, and now they're kind of focusing on like a melee armor kind of thing, but you still have projectile weapons. But you got a shield and a gun, which I think is kind of cool. It's got that Warhammer 40K kind of thing, which is like a Nazi spoof, but, you know, Nazi spoofs and Nazi canon occupy the same space, just like this game does. Just like the original Doom did. I like how he fires the chain and you like jump over it with the mancubi. It's kind of funny though when he does his Doom punch. When they die, it looks kind of funny. The ragdolling mancubi looks a little goofy, but that's fine. It gives it kind of a campy flavor. I don't know what this is, but like, I feel like this is definitely slower paced combat than Doom Eternal, though from what I understand, you can actually modify all of these things that we're watching. So like your attack speed, the enemy's attack speed, the projectile speed, you can ramp all of that up. So this is a demonstration just of the basic mechanics and how they work, but with the difficulty not turned up very high. But if it was turned up all the way, I imagine that this would be much faster. Which is cool. I like that, because Doom Eternal didn't have that flexibility. It's just like you had one play speed, quite literally. Whereas here, okay, and now they're introducing platforming in between, you know, fight scenes, basically, and you got like a treasure chest with like currency and stuff like that. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work. I don't hate it. It makes it feel a little bit more like a roguelite or maybe a Metroidvania, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I love Metroidvania. I only wrote my PhD about it, so, and my entire book series, really. So 5 books on Metroidvania. And shooters. You know, that's another thing I don't get why people say I don't like shooters and Doom, because I wrote multiple books and interview series about Doom. I'm obviously a pretty diehard fan, but I would like it to be different than the way that fascists want it. So far, I'm liking everything that I see. It's also, there's no annoying Dr. Hayden, who's basically monologuing over your gameplay. It's silent, you know, it's a return to the silent protagonist. You don't have to hear Dr. Hayden. I don't know what this is, but it looks kind of cool. Looks kind of cool, man. Oh, neat. It's like a sucking their souls or something, or it's some kind of, maybe it's just like a punchy kind of thing. Like it's a little confusing because you already have the Morning Star, but this is like a Morning Star gun sort of thing. I don't know what it's called, but that's okay. It's almost like a rail gun, but it has a chain attached to it. Like everything has like a neo-medieval retro future kind of feel to it, which to be fair, all the Doom games do to a certain extent. But this is like really leaning into the medieval side of it. I will say, like, hitting the enemy with a medieval attack and they don't respond to it, it looks a little funny. Like they don't even have like recoil or knockback when they get hit. Your weapon just bounces off them. Which on one hand I get, it kind of makes the demons seem kind of powerful, where they just literally don't respond at all. Which is interesting because Doom Guy's supposed to be like Beowulf, right? He's this super badass. But they can kind of take some of his attacks on the chin, which is neat. But also it looks funny, so mixed feelings about that, basically. The enemies in this look really cool. They're definitely going for more of like an Elden Ring kind of feel. Surprise, surprise, right? Given how popular that game was. When you kill the mount, or the rider, the mount is still active. Oh, that was cool. Some of the kill animations and stuff. See, I like gore. I'm trans. I like this stuff too. It's fascists don't have a monopoly on this. White cishet guys and token people don't have a monopoly on this. And yeah, I really like the fact that there's no dialogue. It's just you and you're just playing the game. And there's like a giant thing. It's like, Godzilla! I like Godzilla. Godzilla's gay. Oh, neat. I like the blood. Sort of just like, oh, so you like this big mech, and they're shooting at you too. So I don't know why they're shooting at you if you just killed the monster. So it's like you get to be Godzilla basically. So and you're Godzilla, and you're fighting Gamron or. Okay, so there's you're fighting for the king basically, and you're. Okay, so there's a little bit of voice acting and stuff like that. So you're trying to defend the city. So it's the Godzilla paradox, right? Godzilla saves the city by destroying the city, basically. So, which is kind of a fascist argument, honestly. But it's like saving a city with a nuclear bomb, basically. Oh, that looks cool. Neat. Yeah. No, this looks really neat. Oh, cool. This kind of reminds me of Mike Tyson's Punch Out a little bit, which isn't a bad thing. So it's like you're fighting Mr. Dream, where he kind of winks at you. It's a little bit more obvious than that because of the color coding, but you can turn up the enemy reaction speeds. Oh, shit. Oh, hey, here's another one. So this is like Pacific Rim, basically.
More Titans ahead. Support team.
More darkness ahead. Yeah, it's very like Crusader giant mecha. So this is like fascist mechs, Neo Genesis Evangelion, that kind of thing. So you got the punchy, but now you've got the Gatling guns or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of just the basic like design of it and stuff is kind of neat. Looks like you can parry and shoot at the same time. So this game is all about like block, attack, shoot, block. So you can do like multiple things at the same time. And you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the physics engine, the Havok engine for Painkiller, the old shooter that came out around the same year as Doom 3. And there would just be like these levels with all of these destructibles, and or the Geomod from Red Faction, same kind of thing. So yeah, this is like super cool. And this is like a full-fledged flying mode from what I understand. I'm not sure how I feel about having all these extra game modes. Like, you have to do these things. Like, I get it, you know, it's going to be kind of engaging, but it's just like a completely different game mode. But at least it looks like it's more fleshed out than the platforming in Doom Eternal. So it's like they're really trying to have a holistic gaming experience where you can do platforming, where you can do Mike Tyson's Punch Out, where you can be Godzilla, all in the same video game. Which, you know, they're really checking off, you know, the entire checklist, basically. And, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not super sold on this, but it looks like it's actually pretty engaging. And you can customize the difficulty for all of these. And like, yeah, you have to like dodge and stuff like that. And I don't know, the visuals look okay and stuff like that. And yeah, it actually looks kind of challenging, not gonna lie. And I took some damage there. And then it's going down, and I don't know, it just seems kind of cool. Like, I much prefer just the first person shooter type stuff, but okay. So did you just board a ship? Alright, and now you got a dual, the twin barrel, which is like a double plasma rifle. So you've got like this big ass gun, and it looks like you can have one weapon at a time. and I think there are less guns in this one, but they're more fancy. Yeah, okay, so you boarded a ship and then you got your twin cannon. So it looks like, you know, you can go and find different guns through the different game modes, so they kind of weave and intersect between each other, and it's just more fleshed out than it was in Doom Eternal, which I think is cool. It seems like this could actually be like really varied and interesting. And I don't know if the levels are like procedurally generated or not, like if it has like a roguelike kind of feel to it, or a roguelike kind of feel. I forget the difference between those two, but the one with meta progression, but it's, you know, there's a random element to it, which, you know, I'm not entirely against, especially with this kind of, you know, this isn't a Metroidvania, so this kind of thing, but it also has like, again, Elden Ring and stuff like that. It's really getting into the spirit of combining different game modes. Oh, and the Hell Knights look kind of cool. A lot of the monsters look like they're Doom Eternal versions, but there's definitely lots of new monsters. And then you get back on your mount. And I'm not sure if this is literally just, they did the Godzilla thing from one of the more recent Godzilla movies. That was cool. Yeah, no, there's all kinds of cool nods to different monster movies and stuff. You have to keep in mind, as a trans woman, you know, fascists don't have a monopoly on this shit, and I kind of feel like, you know, there's stuff in here that I enjoy, and also just the game design. That was another thing that I was critiquing from the original. In my original review, I didn't critique it as much, but that's kind of why I disliked it eventually. But people got hung up on the trans and no trans people or girls allowed, which I'm not seeing any women or trans people in this. But, you know, alright, at least the gameplay is more interesting than Doom Eternal. More variety, slower pace, but you can still make it fast-paced if you want. You know, so a customizable difficulty mode is cool. This looks like the female character is the boss, you know, the spider mastermind. I feel like the bosses are more interesting than, let's just have Doom Guy fight a dark version of himself. Like, oh, that looks neat.
Engines online.
Yeah, and it's like, even in Pacific Rim, which if you're going to emulate Pacific Rim, then Pacific Rim had a female mecha pilot. Neo Genesis Evangelion did too. So it's like, they could easily add a female character, just keeping with those, like, very traditional neoconservative Amazon kind of elements. You could still have a female character. Is Doom Eternal going to do that, or are they pandering to fascists a little too hard? Yeah, look, these are all middle-class white cishet guys, middle-aged white cishet guys. Like, they're a bunch of white moderates that work out of Texas. You know, they're corporate owned. They're owned by, I think they're owned by Microsoft at this point. Was Activision, was it Microsoft? I don't know. But in any event, yeah, like, id Studios, it's just, it's literally the same people that made, like, the same kind of people that made the original games. Like, John Carmack and John Romero are the same kinds of dudes. Like, they're just Bill Gates wannabes, basically. And they're trying to regress towards that. And yeah, do you see any women or trans people here? No. They're all Matt Gaetz lookalikes. Yeah, and Doom is like this big, like, franchise now. I mean, it's been a franchise forever, but and they're like, oh yeah, you know, it's so this is like a man cave where they worship this shit. No women anywhere.
Hello.
And this is no women outside of the game, just at the studio. Dallas, Texas. Yeah, it's like, wow, surprise, surprise, they're sexist.
And welcome to Dallas, Texas, home of id Software, where more than 30 years ago, a small team of game developers
Oh, I think I saw a woman in the background.
helped define and set a course for first-person shooters. A lot has changed since then, but our team is as passionate as ever. And the most important values at the core of our games, innovation, craftsmanship, and performance, remain a priority for
Oh, yep, there's a woman, ponytail.
us to this day.
And as you're about to see, those values are infused in every aspect of this latest installment in the legendary Doom franchise. And as you're about to
Values at the core of our games, innovation, craftsmanship, and performance
Not inclusivity, though.
remain a priority for us to this day.
And as you're about to see, those values are infused in every aspect of this latest installment in the legendary Doom franchise. It is an honor to work on this game, to carry on id's tradition of creating all-out, groundbreaking levels of fun.
So now, we're excited to share with you a look at our most ambitious game yet. This is Doom: The Dark Ages.
That was so stupid, I mouthed the words. In Doom: The Dark Ages, you will
So I think I've already seen this before, but you know we can. Basically, they just kind of reiterate a lot of the things that we saw in the previous footage. I guess we can watch it. May as well.
feel like the superweapon in the center of a medieval war against hell.
So the forces of hell in this case are anyone who's not a white cishet, ostensibly Christian man in America.
Set in a cinematic sci-fi fantasy world full of locations to explore, powerful weapons to unlock, and enemies to conquer. This is a prequel to Doom 2016, and that's given us the opportunity to reimagine every aspect of this experience.
Except for the gender.
So if you're new to the franchise, then Doom: The Dark Ages will be the perfect entry point into the series. And if you're a longtime fan, then you'll be proud to see, in a lot of ways, the feel of the game is really a return to form.
I like the just fighting the army of the Mancubi is pretty cool. The design is a little bit different this time. I kind of like the Cyclopean ones from Doom 2016, but these are a little bit different than Doom Eternal, because Doom Eternal, the monster design felt closer to like the classic Doom 1, Doom 2 sort of monsters, the sprites. Whereas this, they modified it a bit again, so it's kind of sort of its own thing, sort of kind of not really, and I don't know. Yeah, just visually, you know, it's obviously a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this.
So let's break it down, starting with the combat. In Doom Eternal, you felt like a fighter jet. In Doom: The Dark Ages, you'll be an iron tank. Heavy, strong, but still fast. A grounded combat.
And like it feels less like a modern war, you know, like a post, like the idea of having like the most advanced technology and flying around, like post World War II with airplanes. You have World War One with that, where there still is a medieval element. Like you had medieval knights, orders of medieval knights going and fighting in World War One. So this sort of like World War One core approach to a regression to the Dark Ages is you know it's a legitimate sort of aesthetic, and I don't dislike it, you know, just in terms of I much prefer a person who's like a tank as opposed to an airplane, because an airplane you're just like zipping around, and it's one thing if you're playing like Ace Combat, but if you're playing a first-person shooter, you should not be flying around as fast as a fighter jet. And even though, yeah, Doom Guy can outrun his rockets, like, it's not that crazy and wild. Like, yeah, you run faster than a human, but not as fast as a fighter jet. Like, you're as fast as, like, I don't know, a motorcycle or something like that. And I think the run speed of Doom Guy in the original games is like 55 miles per hour or something like that. So nothing too crazy, and that's kind of what this feels like. And I like that. It's better. It's Goldilocks. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. It's just right.
Combat system with an emphasis on power over the acrobatics of Doom Eternal.
Yes, that's good.
And a balance between enemy projectiles and player movement speed that makes strafing to aim viable again.
I like that, yeah. And I have to wonder if you can use different weapons, because Doom Eternal kind of forced you to use... you had to use all of these different weapons. Like, the combat loop was very specific, and you couldn't really deviate from it. I have to wonder in this if you can, if it's more flexible.
Just like in the classic Doom games. But it's not all about nostalgia. Innovation is the
Could have fooled me.
goal, always. And so for Doom the Dark Ages, it's an all-new world with new tools and new mechanics to master.
See, in the Gothic, you know, like, you have, like, the retro future comes from the Neo-Gothic period, where you have something that feels new, but it's also tied to the past. It's what Derrida would call hauntological. So when they're calling this a brand new world, I'm like, is it though? Is it really brand new? Or are you just taking a bunch of old shit and slapping it together? Which is totally fine. I mean, that's kind of what the original Doom games did to an extent. I mean, Doom wasn't the first-person shooter. Wolfenstein was. And, like, what we would think of as a first-person shooter, Wolfenstein kind of broke the mold. And, but even then, you know, it's like, those games were ripping off, you know, Nazi killing exploitation films and, like, Inglourious Bastards, the movie, the original movie, not the Quentin Tarantino version, but also in terms of aliens, you know. So there are a lot of different things that they brought to the table with the original Doom games. Same idea here, you know. It's not really new, but it feels fresh. That's the idea. You want to take old things and make them feel fresh again. So yeah, that's totally fine.
Let me introduce you to
Oh, those gloves look cool.
shield saw. Block. Throw. Parry. Deflect.
He kind of talks like James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd. I don't know. Their voices sound very similar.
All from one input. It's contextual. Tons of depth on a single button press. You know, we want every Doom game to stand on its own as a unique experience. So in 2016, we asked you to run and gun. In Doom
Like Bruce Lee with a skateboard.
Eternal, it was jump and shoot. And in Doom the Dark Ages, you're gonna stand and fight.
I like that. It's interesting, you know. Like, there's still strafing, but like the idea of you standing and fighting is almost sort of antithetical to the original model. But you have shields, you have armor. So yeah, it's, I don't know, that's kind of cool. I don't hate it.
And the shield saw will give you the strength to go head to head with some of the biggest.
I like that, the Beast Man with the big ass falchion and shield. Very cool.
Baddest demons we've ever created it in. But that's not all. Because if you're gonna stand and fight, then you gotta have something to follow up that opening parry with. How about an iron flail?
Yeah, he really sounds like James Rolfe.
Or maybe an electrified gauntlet. Or even a doom spiked mace.
Neat.
That's right, we have 3 melee options that are part of a melee system. All on one input, complete with combos and upgrades. And it's totally awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, trans people like action figures and killing demons.
And you can finish off the demons now with an all-new...
Just give us a trans character. Please, please. Give me an Amazon at least. Give me a mommy dom. Step on me, queen.
Unsynced, completely in the player's control glory kill system. From any angle, in and out, as you see fit. And it feels amazing.
Huh. I don't know, I think the glory kill is almost like I like ragdoll and stuff like that, but I don't know. I did like the set animations a little bit. Like, with this, it kind of feels like you hit an enemy and they fall over and they all kind of feel the same. Maybe there's more animations, though.
Smashing your way through the board with total freedom. And that seems like a ton, but that's just 2 inputs. We got one more really important button that we haven't talked about yet. The trigger. That's right, we've saved the best for last. Doom has and always will be all about the guns, and Dark Ages has some of the most ridiculously powerful weapons that we've ever created.
I don't know about that. There's a lot of pretty crazy guns in the franchise. I like the music too, just kind of listening to it. I don't know if it's not by Mick Gordon, as far as I can tell, but it still sounds good.
Mean. Ancient.
You got a blunderbuss.
Brutal torture machines, built to butcher, impale, and
It's straight out of Painkiller.
shred the minions of hell with.
Again, when I was in high school, I played Doom 3, Far Cry 1, and Painkiller. Like, so, it's like, yeah, I know there's nostalgia for me, not just from the early 90s when I played the original Doom, but also, like, the Doom 3 era and all those shooters. I want to see if there's a rocket launcher, though.
Only in Doom. That's the mission statement for the design of these never-before-seen, insanely fun-to-use tools of mayhem that only the Slayer has the power to wield.
Well, what if you had a trans character that could wield them too? Or is this like a Thor thing where only Thor can wield the hammer? Like, come on, give us female Slayer. It's not hard. It's really not.
So let's take a look at some extended gameplay footage and see how these medieval mechanics synergize with the enemies and the environments.
I like the big map, and like it almost feels like a strategy game, the way that you can zoom out like that and the way that they're arranged. I think that's cool. I used to play like Myth the Fallen Lords in the 90s and Warcraft, so it kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
To form the new combat loop for Doom the Dark Ages.
I don't know if I saw this. Oh, you got the flasks. The music almost sounds like Fear Factory, which again is kind of a nod to Mortal Kombat, right? Zero Signal. Welcome. Oh, it's cool. I gotta admit that the ragdoll's growing on me a bit. This definitely has like a Painkiller feel to it. And I think
under the hood, for the first time,
that purple kind of circle is like the glory kill kind of thing. I'm not sure.
in an id game, we've made our combat more approachable and flexible than ever before, with a new difficulty system and slide.
I like that. This is super cool because you got the difficulty level, but then you have the modifiers that increase like parry window, days duration, game speed, resource values. So you can choke your ammo and make the enemies really fast. You can make them more aggressive. Their projectiles go faster, and it's all customizable. So you can have like a really aggressive enemies but slow projectile speeds, or vice versa. Like you can mix and match. So this is like super cool. I love this. This is good. And then you have game controls, UI, audio, difficulty, menu input, auto map input, Slayer input, Atlan input. So these are like the different game modes. That's awesome. That's super cool. I love this kind of shit. Because there's no reason not to add it. This isn't like 1990. You can like do stuff like this relatively easily. So appealing to the players and having this quality of life. And these are only some of the options. Like this is a scrolling bar, so there's even more values, I'm assuming, or maybe this isn't scrollable. I don't know. But that's awesome.
That will allow players to tune the speed and challenge of the game to whatever fits them best.
Yes.
You can slow things down or speed them up. It's a Doom for all Slayers.
And the gameplay doesn't...
But trans people, right? You're gonna have a trans character? Yeah? Yeah, please.
End with just the Slayer. We finally have for you, you've been waiting for 2 games now,
Trans character?
to get in and pilot your very own 30-story Atlan, which is a mech. It's the size of a
I like how he's like, which is a mech? No shit. Like,
building. It's powerful, and you can beat giant Titan-sized demons to death with your gauntleted fists. And if that wasn't enough, we also have for you your very own fire-breathing, Gatling gun-toting cybernetic dragon. Neither of these are one-and-done features either. They have a full suite of abilities and even mini-bosses. The spectacle is epic. The power fantasy is unlike anything we've made it in. And the combat systems behind these features are deep and tons of fun.
I will say that, you know, these kinds of game modes aren't really a part of, like, they started introducing them with Doom Eternal, but apart from like that hook sequence and a couple of other moments in getting the meat hook in that game, there weren't too many sequences like that. Whereas in this, they're really going out of the way to expand and build on that in ways that, again, really reminds me of like Red Faction and Painkiller, and just, I don't know, some like various mech games that I don't play a lot of those, but games where you play and duel against other mech wielding people, and I wish I knew the names of any, but I can't think of any because I don't play them. But you know, like Godzilla 2, stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it feels pretty cohesive, but I'd have to see the game played from like start to finish in the way that how smooth are the transitions. But I like the variety.
And as cool as all that is, we know that fans of single-player action games expect more than just great combat to pull them through the experience. So we're excited to share with you not just the gunplay, but the world of Doom: The Dark Ages. Your hero's journey will take you to the far reaches of the Doom
So Hero's Journey, the monomyth.
universe. Mysterious worlds from the Slayer's past, dark forests, dungeons, ancient hellscapes.
I like the sound effects. Like it seems like it almost seems like you could play the game without music and just listen to the environmental sounds, which is kind of neat. You know, past Doom games didn't really have that. It's basically just music and gun sounds and demon sounds. But here they actually have environmental sound effects.
Battlefields, and worlds beyond. And through exploration, you'll be unlocking new abilities and godlike powers every step of the way. Now armed with your trusty shield saw, step of the way, and godlike powers.
Oops. So it looks like you have like a skill trees that you can unlock, and this is like a beta or something like that, I guess. But yeah, you can like get currency. So you explore, you get currency
and godlike powers every step.
Chests and whatever this is. So there are like different currencies. So there's probably a lesser currency and a greater currency. And yeah, no, I'm not against that. You know, it's very, again, like roguelike, basically.
Step of the way. Now armed with your trusty shield saw.
And you got the in-game puzzles. I don't hate that.
You're gonna cut, leap, and smash your way through environments full of secrets and treasures.
I like the idea of secrets. That's kind of a Metroid-y kind of thing. So I have to wonder how, because one thing that Doom Eternal had that they didn't have was that they got rid of secrets. Like it was the laziest secret system in any Doom game. So here I'm hoping it's a little bit more fleshed out.
There's always something new waiting to be discovered or destroyed. Now let's take a closer look at just one of the many missions you'll experience in Doom: The Dark Ages. In this level, you will meet the enemy at the gates and save a city from certain destruction. Explore the medieval battlefield outside the castle walls, seeking out targets and enemy formations along the way to engage with as you see fit, with any gun you choose. Explore what is the largest play space ever in a Doom game. Discover.
Yeah, I love that, where you have like these really huge maps, and they feel big because you can't just fly through them. You know, that's one thing that Doom Eternal you could have the biggest maps ever, but if you can just like zip through them, that's I hated the speedruns in that game too, because when they broke the game, like uh, on one hand they hated speedrunners and they were constantly trying to make it harder for them to speedrun, but then like with any percent you could just fall through the world. But even if you were playing through the game normally, you just fly through it, so the levels would feel relatively small, whereas here they're going to feel bigger because your character can't just fly through them.
Covering secret caves and dungeon-like mines in search of vital resources.
Yes, I love that. Like, you know, it's like finding secrets is actually valuable, you know, and there is a meta. So you know, and the entire game world is built around that. You know, it's not like, okay, you have to play through 5 levels before you can actually play the game. It's like, no, from start to finish, you're working your way up and unlocking things in more of a, you know, like a Metroidvania kind of way, but also a roguelike kind of way. And I think that that's cool. That definitely sounds interesting to me, just from like a game design standpoint, and just the kind of games that I prefer. And again, I love FPS, but if you could like mix an FPS with Metroidvania, I've seen games like that. One was like this Metal Slug meets Metroidvania kind of thing. Why not a first-person shooter?
You control the pace of the game.
And you got swimming.
Where you go, who you fight, and the objectives you pursue.
I like that. Yeah, it has a lot more options for the player. You know, it's open-ended, and depending on where you go, maybe they have backtracking, and depending on what equipment you have, you can access certain areas depending on how they're designed. I would love that.
It's a doomed sandbox full of war and riches. Once you've broken the enemy assault, head back to the main gates, because the battle isn't over yet. And the soundtrack to your epic adventures will be composed by the award-winning team at Finishing Move.
So, not Mick Gordon. Poor Mick. He really got shafted.
Providing you with a metal soundscape that's loaded with guitars, medieval vibes, and pure adrenaline.
Again, it really sounds like Fear Factory. Like that new 90s new metal, basically.
You'll feel like you're expanding the legend of the Slayer with every mission you complete.
With touches of industrial and stuff like that, too. Not a bad thing. You know, I listened to Fear Factory all the time as a kid.
And speaking of that legend, the story of Doom the Dark Ages, like everything else in the game, is
recycled.
Big. It's a summer blockbuster event with everything on the line, and you are the star of the show. Your power is coveted by your enemy.
Yeah, so, oh no. Like, here's the cuck, and here's Medusa, or Satan, maybe, I don't know. We want to be the Giga Chad. The Slayer is Giga Chad, must take Giga Chad's power.
And withheld from your allies. With the
cool. Yeah, so this is like, you know, the medieval demons of like, I'm guessing there's going to be like he reminds me of Gluttony, the previous demon kind of looks like
on the line, and you are the star of the show. Your power is
so you're a Greek hero, and this is like Medusa's head, you know, so he's you know, Theseus, he's Perseus, and he's going around and killing classic monsters from Greek antiquity, the monomyth, that kind of thing.
And withheld from your allies.
And this is like a gluttony kind of guy, so this is more like a Dante's Inferno kind of demon with cybernetic.
With the Slayer imprisoned at the start of our story, the balance of power between good and evil.
Yeah, so doing the Samus Aran thing where you lose your power and you gotta work your way up.
Is shifting, and time is...
I like his armor looks really cool. Like, I like the metal imbricating plates overlapping, like, it's kind of like Doom Eternal, but it's got more of a medieval, and he's got the chainmail loincloth. Like, I don't know, it's just there's more detail, and I like the spikes and stuff like that. It's cool, but he's got to show off the guns though. Got to show off 2 tickets to the gun show, like, and he's got the little red. Yeah, there's all kinds of detail, like the little red dots here. Yeah, no, it looks cool as hell.
Running out. It's a new story, and
Needs boobs though, you know. Gonna be honest. Maybe a big fat dick just swinging in between his legs.
Perfect entry
Or just a giant pair of balls.
point for new players.
Which actually is kind of medieval. You know, the codpiece just like literally means scrotum, right? And they would have like these big ostentatious codpieces. So yeah, just why not just go crazy and just have like this giant Morningstar penis? But make it pink with rainbows.
It's easier to access now as we've taken the narrative out of the codex and into the cutscenes, featuring new characters.
Ah, hey, a girl. They have a female character. Awesome. So they have like these. She's like a Nazi she-wolf kind of with the black and the red. It's FemShep. Cool. Yay. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Old allies and powerful new villains.
They got, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. Kind of a trans sort of vibe, you know, the Cenobites kind of thing.
And for returning players, it leads directly into the Doom 2016 Slayer's Testaments. It's an action story worthy of the Slayer's legend.
Neat. Hey, look, they showed a woman at the workplace. One woman.
We've got 10 years
Oh, there's another one. Oh, that person looks like they might be gay.
of making modern Doom games together.
They got
And we've
that,
done better with
that
every
dyke
game
kind of
we've
energy.
made.
The hope with all this, the goal, is to give players an experience that's as fun to play as it was to make.
I wonder if these people are scripted or if they're actually just walking behind them and they don't even don't act like you don't see the camera.
And make something that's good enough to become the best game id has ever made.
But that is for you to decide. When Doom the Dark Ages releases,
Huh. Yeehaw. May 15th. Before he became a hero, he was the super weapon of gods and kings. So it's kind of like Conan, right? Thief, slave, gladiator, thief, king. You know, the general who became a slave, the slave who became a gladiator, the gladiator who defied an empire. You know, it's the same old power fantasy. Okay, so yeah, this is just like the basic trailer, I guess. But yeah, okay. So you got female characters. That's good. They look kind of like Nazi themed too. So you got that strict mommy dom, maybe with the short hair, that FemShep kind of dyke from outer space sort of thing going on. I can work with that. And there's definitely a huge variety in terms of the monsters and just everything else. The game design, it all looks good. It has some Metroidvania kind of stuff going on, the sandboxy sort of stuff. I don't hate it. It looks good. The music sounds good. Unfortunately, we live in Gothic times, so there's Nazis everywhere in real life, and they're gonna gatekeep this shit. But they answered my prayers. They got rid of the flying, and they added female characters. So who knows? Maybe they'll have a trans character too. That would be nice. And right off the bat, you're automatically in my good graces. So yeah, that's cool. In any event, I hope you like this April Fool's video. This is me, in all seriousness, actually saying that I like Doom the Dark Ages, at least in terms of what I've seen of it so far. I'll definitely be following it as it releases, and who knows, maybe I'll even interview some speedrunners of the games for old time's sake, if they'll let me. But we'll see how that goes. But in any event, yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. And if you like content like this and you want to see me talk about Doom more, because I'm going to have more free time after my book series finishes, let me know. You know, leave some thoughts in the comments, and positive or negative, I'll probably respond to both. But if you're a Nazi, I'm just going to call you a Nazi at this point. I don't have time to suffer fools. But if you have, you know, some comments, you know, what do you think of the game? Let me know. give me some stuff to talk about. But until that happens, stay tuned for more content, and see you next time.